Canucks Superstars J.T. and Elias Pettersson find themselves on a notable rankings list after their high-scoring seasons, and Brock Boeser is incredibly disrespected with his omission from an NHL Network list, and both of these lists have Canucks fans fired up on both sides of the fence. We'll be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first, we know with the regular season approaching, it's going to be a stressful time for you guys as we get into these nail-biting games into the third period, and for that, we have a special offer for you, and I'm going to let Mark take it away from here.
Are you trying to kick a bad habit to the curb? If so, you need to check out Fume. Have you heard that flavored air category is becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's a whole new movement towards better habits led by today's sponsor of this video, Fume. Flavored air isn't like vaping. If vapor was compared to sticky sodas, Fume cores are closer to herbal teas. Fume has a lot of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint, orange vanilla. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapors, or combustion. Fume has been backed by doctors in the US, and the company continues to invest in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products. My favorite thing about Fume is the delicious flavor cores, especially the crisp mint, that you can use anywhere, at home, work, on the go, anywhere you want to use this you can. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. Slip it on to the mouthpiece for a warmer, soother feel. It's also chewable for those who love to fidget, and it's also reusable. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use code DIGEST or the QR code on the screen right now to get your free Fume topper when you order your first journey pack today.
Thanks for that, Mark. And with that, let's hop into the first topic today, which is Miller and Petey make top 25. And we see here in Daily Faceoff's annual list of top 50 forwards, we see here that JT Miller and Elias Pettersson did make the top 25. There was no Canucks in the bottom 25 of the top 50, but you see there Elias Pettersson at number 23 and JT Miller at 17. And you see there in the far right, there is that high noon column. We're going to get to what that meaning is in a second if you're not a fan of Daily Faceoff and don't follow their page and know what it is. But you see there that they are in pretty good company. You do see there the other top 25, other top 23, I should say, as well as them. You have Zach Hyman, Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Jake Gensel, Sam Reinhart, Alexander Barkov, so many other names. You see McDavid, McKinnon, and Matthews, Kucherov, and Pastrnak at the top there. And if you guys didn't know what JT Miller's stats were over the past season, as well as Elias Pettersson, we're going to go over them very quickly. I know we've talked about them a lot lately, just because going into next season, we like to look at what they did last season, especially when it was as productive as they were, despite some hiccups on the part of Elias Pettersson. But you see there with JT Miller, 103 points, 66 assists, 37 goals over 87 games, plus 32 rating, nearly 20 minutes on the ice averaging per game. On to go after age 30 season where he broke the age curve, where he had his best career season after the age of 29, where many forwards do seem to fall off. Then he was, well, if you look at Elias Pettersson, where he had 82 games played the full season despite having a nagging knee injury where he just played through it, did put up 89 points. Wasn't the triple digit points that he had the season before, but it was still very productive, plus 20 rating. Also as well, a 1939 time on ice average, and as well 207 shots on net. He was getting pucks deep. He was getting the shots fired on net, but again, he was not finding the back of the red line enough to get into the triple digits. Hopefully he does have that bounce back season, and it was good enough to put him in this list. So if you guys are unfamiliar with Daily Faceoff's list and what the high noon category means, it is a player's highest positional ranking over any 3-season stretch of their career. Positions is forwards, center, defensemen, and goaltenders. They have a three-part series coming out, and part 1 was the forwards, defensemen, and goaltenders going to be coming up soon. And it's calculated at the end of each season using a player's adjusted point share over the 3 previous seasons. Most recent performance is weighted the most heavily. Half of the score from the season is most recently completed, and 1/3 from the season prior, and 1/6 from the 2 seasons prior to that. Skaters must play in 50% of the adjusted schedule in a 3-season cycle to qualify. Goalies 45%. Players cannot qualify until the end of their 3rd NHL season at the earliest. Lost lockout season or season gaps have no impact on career continuity. So a simplified version of it basically is right here. Players are divided positionally by levering point shares. High noon system is driven by box score stats, not advanced data like a lot of other ones do. Goals are more valuable than assists, having more direct impact on scoring overall. Players are broadly assigned credit for team defense based on ice time and team relative plus minus. Goaltenders with high save percentages and shot counts are rewarded most. playoffs aren't factored in, postseason opportunities and opposition being too arbitrary to include, missing time isn't punished so long as the games are played, the threshold over the 3-year window is met. So when we look at those intangibles to make that list, when you do look at the list there, you see where Miller does rank at 17 as well, and Pettersson is just outside the top 20 there at 22. So you see how it does impact it, and it looks at a bit deeper stats than the typical advanced stats that we're used to seeing with all the analytics and things like that. But it is nice to see where 2 of the members of this core 4 were able to crack the top 25, and it was nice to see where those guys, especially with Quinn Hughes and the defenseman list coming up, I'm sure he's going to find himself in the top 10 probably, or higher, probably number 1 or in the top 3. But it is nice to see how these core 4 members are making the splash. They're now getting the recognition that they deserve, and it's just giving them another boost going into next season after they were a team where people counted them out. They thought they were going to make the playoffs at best, and they just exceeded expectations and went above and beyond and went through that. Again, the job wasn't finished. We want that Stanley Cup. That would be the ultimate pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Who knows if we're going to get there? I think we're in a better shape now to do that than this past season. And another player who did make his list, jumping up the margins on the list, was Brock Boeser. He improved to number 70 on the 2024 rankings after finishing outside the top 100 1 year ago. Furthermore, former Canucks forward Elias Lindholm dropped 64 spots from number 38 to 102 after managing just 44 points in the 2023-2024 season. So a guy that we lost, he did drop down the list. One of our best guys did jump up the list. And that's going to lead us into our second topic of the day, which was Brock Boeser disrespected. So we see here in the list of NHL Network put out of the top 20 wings right now. We see here in the top 10 right there where a lot of guys you would have expected to see in that top 10, but it's where we get into the second 10 players where we see some controversy there, where Zach Hyman made it, Brady Tkachuk, Steven Stamkos, Filip Forsberg, all those guys. We see there at the bottom as well, Alex Ovechkin and Brad Marchand, some of the best players that we have today. Travis Konecny, I'm sorry there, and Clayton Miller, Kyle Connor as well. But one player who was left off that list was Beauty Brock Boeser. Where was his ranking on that list? He had 73 points over 81 games. And this is going to sound crazy. I know what you guys are going to be thinking, but we're going to get to them in a second. But you look at Konecny, he had 68 points, right? And this is where things are going to get crazy. You look at Alexander Ovechkin, set 65 points over 79 games. You look at Brad Marchand, 67 points over 82 games as well. So I know it's crazy to say, but Brock Boeser statistically did have a better season than Alex Ovechkin and Brad Marchand, some of the best players that we have of our generation in hockey. And yes, that I know it is a shame thing to say that, to go to Brad Marchand as a Canucks fan, but Alexander Ovechkin definitely is one of the best players that we've had in this generation of hockey. But again, to see that their stats, when you look at that compared to Brock Boeser, it's kind of night and day, where Brock Boeser definitely should have been on that list. And it goes even further when you look at Kyle Connor as well, 61 points, 65 games, yet he ranked way higher on the list than a lot of the other guys where he had even less points then. So why is Brock Boeser being counted out like that? Why is it not being looked at in the same sense? Why is he not being put in that conversation? I think it's very interesting that he isn't being put in that conversation when you look at a lot of the other guys, where I don't know if I would put Brock Boeser below those guys. I know Alexander Ovechkin and Brad Marchand, those guys are difference makers for those teams. But Brock Boeser is that difference maker for Vancouver. We've seen how he is one of those engines that makes this team go. Yes, Quinn Hughes is the leadership, and as well as J.T. Miller. They are the leaders of this team. Quinn Hughes is the one who sets up all the plays and makes it happen. But Brock Boeser is the clutch player that we have on this team. He is the most clutch player maybe in the league as far as goals scored when you need them to be scored. We saw with the playoffs in Nashville, he put the team on his back in that game. We saw in the Edmonton game where he would score late to get us back in the games when we needed points to be scored. So I think to have him not even on the list of the top 20 is very much disrespectful to not have him in there, especially when considering that he was scoring more than some of the guys who did make the list, at least 4 of them, like we pointed out. and the fact that he is that difference maker for Vancouver, where in Game 7 against Edmonton in the Western semis, you felt his presence not there. He wasn't there, and their offense very much slacked as a result of it. So when he is that difference maker, how can you not put him on that list of the top 20 guys, especially when looking at his stats and everything else that goes with it? What he means to this team, what he means to this city, as well as the other guys that were on the list. Those guys also mean very much to their teams, like Austin Matthews, like Nikita Kucherov, and the other ones as well. So why wasn't he put on that list? I have no idea. I think it just proves that there is maybe some sort of unconfirmed bias with the Vancouver Canucks and not just including them in lists. I know J.T. Miller, Elias Pettersson, like we just talked about, made that list. But for these guys not to be included in a lot of lists even before last season, it just gives them an extra chip on their shoulder, something more to play for. And I think Brock Boeser is going to go into next season even more hungry. He's going to jump up the daily faceoff list, and I think he's going to find himself on that NHL Network list next season. But let us know what you guys think down below. Let us know what you think about Brock Boeser being left off the top 20 wingers list. Where does he rank in your list of top 20 wingers? I know he ranks a lot higher than they do for me. I don't know about you guys, but let us know what you guys also think about Miller and Pettersson being included in the top 25 forwards. Where do you guys think they would rank as well with their contemporaries? Love to hear what you guys think down below. And speaking of what you guys have to say down below, let's get into everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. And we see here in comment of the day from Irene Quintero, Sprong's a bit of a black hole defensively. Pettersson needs a line mate who is good defensively and can protect him. This is talking about last episode where we talked about the pressure being on Pettersson. And yes, Sprong does have a bit more slack to pick up defensively, but on a team where Rick Tocchet has more of a defensive game plan, not as much offensive, and when you have Dakota Joshua, who was the league leader in hits before he got hurt, I think Sprong could adapt a more physical identity on this line with Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk, where Pettersson and DeBrusk are going to be that offensive tandem, and then Sprong is going to be hopefully that physicality that can be the offensive explosiveness that they need on the other end, on that other wing to go with the defense. But it's going to be interesting to see how this Vancouver roster shakes out this upcoming season and what Pettersson does, what DeBrusk does. So much players to be excited about as far as what they can do. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.